I have the pleasure today of being joined by Nichola Stott, who is the founder of the amazing SEO agency Erudite. And Nichola has not only read the book, she's endorsed the book, and we're very lucky for her to endorse the book. So, Nichola, I really wanted to talk to you and find out how you actually got into marketing in the first place.
It's funny, really. People get into marketing from a number of different routes, don't they? And I guess there's this sort of formal route where you may do some kind of higher education in marketing. But for me, it was a complete sidestep. So I was working for Yahoo, where I was head of UK search partnerships. And I really didn't see it, even though it was called search marketing. I really didn't see my role as marketing at the time. I didn't really have that sort of perspective in it because my responsibilities and area of focus was very much within the data, so really quite an internal position, understanding how consumers kind of contribute to search data. So it was more of a data insights kind of position as well as a commercial role. And it was that aspect of the role that I really liked. And wanting to stay within search and be close to the data led me to make the decision to set up my own SEO agency. So that's how I got started in marketing. It was very much from the SEO route, and having a passion for data and what it explains to us about all sorts of different types of consumer behaviour and personal habits.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Data's such a core piece, isn't it? It's like I was speaking with the CIM and DMA, and they both mentioned the importance of data to just shed some light on consumers and take away our own bias as marketers and find out more about the customer themselves. So what's your current role involve? Because you run an agency, I would imagine from experience, it can be pretty crazy at times.
It's changed a fair bit in the past 3 or 4 years. There is a tendency, because I started the business as an independent consultant, so I didn't really have any intentions of creating an agency per se. And I got to the stage sort of a year in where I just couldn't really manage all of the work that I had in a way that was healthy in the lifestyle that I'd wanted, and was also part of the reason, for leaving Yahoo. I had a young baby and all the rest of it. So I thought, should I flip this into an agency and start to grow out an agency? So there is a tendency, if you come into it from that stage, you're not funded, you grow organically, to still keep doing the work and doing the marketing work. And in order to grow the business and really focus on who we were as a brand and do our own marketing, I've had to step back quite a bit from that. So to get to the point, my role is less about marketing our clients and primarily about marketing us. So that can be in terms of the marketing strategy. It also dovetails into the new business side and how that meets our sales strategy as well. It's the company strategy, who we are, what we do, how we do it. So I'm also responsible for things like leading, the culture, the ethics, the standards in how we approach our work, what we do and what we don't do, as far as tactics are concerned. And it's some of the drier things like the finance management and financial planning and that sort of thing.
All the fun bits.
A lot of balls to juggle.
Yeah, and lots of variety, which is good. It keeps you on your toes, right?
You know what? That's the bit that I really enjoy, is that no day is ever the same. Yeah, all that variety is something that really just keeps me interested.
And what advice would you give to any aspiring marketers?
And this is advice possibly that I might have given my younger self as well, perhaps. Because I come to marketing from a very, very particular channel, a very technical channel, I would advise others, and again, my younger self, to have a broader understanding of classics of marketing, the theory of marketing, the academic side of marketing, the marketing mix, and understanding how other channels work and interplay. And most importantly, and this happens so often, the difference between a tactic, so I'd come into it from being a tactic expert, and a strategy. Because that's really where you can elevate and grow and become a much more sophisticated and effective marketer. That difference between understanding what makes a good strategy and what is a tactic.
Yeah, great advice. I think that was like my biggest passion for writing this book, to help people distinguish what that difference is, because I think there's still such a huge misconception of strategy and tactics, and we see it every day. We're very heavily tactical driven, I think, as an industry, and the strategic part at times just kind of falls by the wayside, or we think, oh, we don't have enough time for that. And actually you save so much more time by starting the planning piece. So yeah, great advice. Okay, so you mentioned there that you work a lot now focused on marketing your own agency, and when your agency is working with clients, what kind of key challenges do you see from a client perspective, and maybe you see those also in running your own agency when implementing a marketing strategy?
I'd say there's two areas that are quite difficult and often encountered. The first is getting the respect and buy-in from either senior team members or board, or the decision makers within the business for particularly our channel. So we're talking about search, we're talking about conversion rate optimization, the two core services that we offer alongside web analytics. Things that are really much more visible from the front. So the creative side of marketing, social media side of marketing, digital PR, so much more tangible for anyone in the street. They can see your digital PR campaign. They might have read it. They might know what. So we had Aldi last week, and Colin, the Caterpillar legal case. Everybody, your other half, your local builder who's working in your kitchen might have come across that campaign. Everybody can understand it. Not everybody knows what we do. It's not accessible. If we're talking about improving, crawl efficiency on a website, the average punter doesn't know what that is. So the detail of what we do and getting the awareness of what we do and the impact that it has can be really, really difficult internally. It's just not that sexy. So we're often having to fight and explain the ROI and presenting the numbers and presenting the effect and presenting the impact and forecasting. So there's a lot of our work is often spent defending our value, whereas I think if you're coming at it from a different channel, that's not always the case. The second, and possibly related, is getting in that developer queue. So once we have our recommendations, once we have the strategy going forward, it's making sure that you can really convince those that own that, whether it's a production manager that might distribute work in a team of people, getting to that gatekeeper who makes sure that your requirements and your work to drive these positive changes is going to get into that developer queue and to get action quickly.
So you've got kind of like a big educational piece, really, like a continuous educational piece. Short-term, tactical, maybe not the best advice, where clients are coming in expecting results from SEO in a week or so, on top of like trying to educate on what the crawling means, why it's important, and all of those elements as well.
Yes, it is tricky. That's life. We've got many tactics and, lots of different templates and things that we can use for forecasting and demonstrating ROI. It's just a simple fact that unless we are shouting and really pushing that data to our contacts and getting them to then, report that on to the decision makers and budget holders, it's just got to be done like that, really. You just have to push for that. Without that, I guess they don't really know what we're doing. They're paying us and they don't know what we're actually physically, how much work is involved, because they can't see it. So we just have to keep saying, don't worry about that. These are the results of what we've done.
Good point. Okay, so have you seen any changes in that approach from brands and clients when looking at SEO in particular, implementing changes maybe on the website, the whole approach to SEO in the past 5 to 10 years? Have you seen any kind of changes from brands and clients in terms of what they're requesting or that educational piece?
So, yeah, a couple of changes. I mean, it has gradually gotten easier in the past 10 years, because I've been running this business for over 10 years now. It's nowhere near as much of a fight as it was, but it is still a fight. What we are hearing so much more of from our clients and the people that we are working directly with is they are saying to us, we want to be your ambassadors within our organisation. So we've got a board meeting at this date every month. Can you give us the top 3 wins? So we're seeing much more. That battle is won in terms of the people that we're working directly with. They really do understand our value, and they're asking us to help them sell us in more, so that they can get more budget and more understanding and respect for what we are doing together, our client and our direct contacts there. Secondly, in the past year, obviously, global pandemic, a lot of things have moved online. Businesses that never thought that they would move online, restaurants that have closed their doors have had to move to kind of meal kit solutions. So we're seeing so many businesses pivoting, and so much more of an appreciation of the web as a channel to get to your consumer, no matter what your business model is. And that, I think, has really elevated the work that we do somewhat. Obviously, is under tragic circumstances, but it has kind of meant that there is a lot more of an understanding and an appetite for the work that we do of late.
And it also drives, if it wasn't, it already was really important, but it makes it absolutely crucial, right? Isn't it, to be able to find not only that company's website, but also for it to function so they can survive during the last 12 months.
It is absolutely crucial, but it's really funny, and I'm sure you will say this yourself, but the advice that is always given whenever there's a time of difficulty, like a pandemic, a global recession, any sort of macroeconomic factors that will significantly impact business and the economy, the advice is always don't stop, spend more, dig in, push more. And it's unusual that even though that should have been what happened, there were quite a few businesses just crippled in that analysis paralysis. We don't know what's going to happen. Certainly in the first 3 to 6 months, and some sort of panic stopped, didn't know what the right direction was, couldn't make a decision. So there was a bit of that, certainly. But I think it seems as if organisations have found their way now.
Yeah, I think we definitely saw that as an agency as well, where there was a lot more outsourcing of external support to optimize the budget, but also because a lot of resources had gone onto furlough. So it meant that they could continue, but maybe at a slightly reduced rate in terms of what they were, how much marketing they were spending. I think now we start to see that whole ramp up again. Now everything's started to open. The summer's going to be crucial for a lot of organizations to really claw back anything that they've lost. So it's a really interesting time for that, but I completely agree. You never want to just stop altogether. You need to keep going. And the brands that have done that and have been, and the brands that have had, the focus of digital being really core to what they do, have been able to pivot really quickly. Organizations that haven't been as prepared, or maybe been putting off some key elements, it was a real struggle for them to then be able to switch that on, because it's just not that possible to just switch everything on like that quickly. So really it has been a really interesting time, and hopefully now things are going to a new normal, as everyone keeps calling it. So what do you think are the most common pitfalls a marketer faces, and how can they overcome them?
We've said this before, but I can't stress this enough. It is absolutely that obsession or focus on tactics, rolling out a list of tactics and thinking that is a strategy. I think that's how you elevate really from a kind of executive level mindset and ability to really becoming a critically valuable team member. Is just being able to elevate your thinking in that way, see a bigger picture, understand more what the business is going through, all of the different factors that contribute to that, and being able to think strategically rather than tactically.
And are there any like go-to resources, or maybe particular things that you really know? I get asked a lot about how do you stay on top of all the key trends? How do you keep up, because things are changing so much? Do you have any like key resources that you go to that you are regularly reading or consulting with to keep up to date?
So in a way, yes, for us, it's quite technical. So I find that Twitter does it for me in a way, by following the people that I follow and the people that they are then connected to. The right news just finds its way to me. So I almost use Twitter as a kind of news discovery service. And if you have, you follow the most critical noisemakers or leaders, thought leaders for a particular type of aspect of SEO or CRO or whatever it is that you're doing, the market makers, that news does come to you.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. I think Twitter is such a great resource if you can really hone in on those key people. I definitely get lots of my kind of top trends and things from there.
Yeah.
You kind of briefly mentioned at the beginning what advice you'd give your younger self. And I wondered if there's anything else that any other advice that you'd now give from all the experience you've gained to you starting out in marketing. Is there any particular tips that you'd give yourself?
I would tell myself to be braver, much more braver in terms of the ambition and the size and the scope of the strategies that I was putting forward, and to take more risks, not just in terms of marketing and approach to marketing, but probably in how I approach my business. Risk in terms of how I hired and how I grew early on, taking people to the core that have skills that are completely different and complementary to mine. I'd say surrounding yourself with people that are entirely different thinkers and have different skill sets to complement a more specific focus.
And maybe challenge some of your thinking as well. Because I always find that, like a member of the DMA email council, and we're all very opinionated and you get challenged, and some people get really put off by that. But I actually really like that, because then it changes your perspective and makes you think in a different way.
Yeah, completely agree. I think there's it's a bit of a balancing act, or can be a misconception that company culture means, or company values in particular, means that everybody has to be the same and think the same. It's not that at all. You might have some core kind of moral guidelines or ethical sort of frameworks, but that does not govern your skill set or your approach or how you think or how you come at a problem. And I think getting that balance right between having a homogenous and really strong company culture and values and what you stand for, but also having an embracing challenge internally. It's a good, when you hit that, it's great. And that's when the magic happens.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experience. Brilliant tips. So good to chat to you, and brilliant to see what you're doing, but also the agency as well. Thank you so much for taking the time. So good to chat to you, Nichola.
Oh, thank you too, Jenna, and thank you for allowing me to get first dibs on the book.
Of course. You're welcome.
Thank you. Take care.